that a young man showed. He was an older gentleman, came and shared. When he saw us, he started crying because he said he had not met such a compassionate, respectable gentleman as Oscar. He said he was going out the store, and Oscar said, "Here, let me push the basket for you." And so Oscar was pushing a basket for him. Oscar put his groceries into his car, and Oscar was like, "Is there anything else I could do for you? Anything, you know?" And Oscar left that impression on him. And so he said he had to come out to the visual just to share that, And even the young lady, people say, well, maybe that's a made up story. Even the young lady who didn't know how to cook fish. Oscar was at work. He called my mom's house, and we're on the phone, my mom and I, on a conference where we have it on conference. We're on the phone trying to help this young lady pick out fish, telling her how to cook the fish, And Oscar didn't know her, but she was just a customer asking questions. And so that was an impact that he placed on her life as well. And so Oscar was that type of person. If you needed something and Oscar could help you, he would get it for you. One last story was, we was living in San Leandro, and Oscar door his room had a sliding door that you could go out on the balcony. And so one time I came home and it was so cold, and I'm like, why is it cold? And so I go into his room and the sliding door is cracked, but there's a cord that's going out the sliding door. So I'm like, what is this for? So I just unplugged the cord, threw it outside, and shut the sliding door and locked it and went into my room. So a few minutes later, somebody was knocking on the door. And I go to the door. I said, yes. And they said, is Oscar home? I said, no. And they began to tell me that they didn't have any PG&E. And Oscar was allowing them to plug up so that they could at least have their refrigerator on so that their food wouldn't spoil. And it also gave them a little bit of light. And I was like, oh. And so I said, okay, thank you. So I plugged it back up for them. So, but when Oscar got home, I said, excuse me, who's paying this PG&E bill? And I began to tease him. I said, what are you doing using my PG&E bill for somebody else? And he was like, Mom, they didn't have no PG&E, so I let them use ours, And so that's the type of person Oscar was. If he could help you with something, he would help you.
And that's the crazy thing about it, is that Oscar saw the humanity in everyone. And the tragedy at that night is that those two officers didn't see humanity in him.
And and you're right. And even though Oscar was telling his friends, be quiet, follow the directions, we're going home, just don't say nothing, just be quiet. You could hear Oscar over and over telling his friends that, people testified to that, people testified that he was like, man, just be quiet. We'll be out of here in a minute. And never did he even think in a million years, probably, that he was not going to be the one to get out of there, but all his friends were.